Right, okay then. So before I begin, I mean, for everybody that's on here, I mean, most of you know me, so obviously I'm Keely. So now, what I'd like to actually put past you now, let's just say, I think it was about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, I read an article by the World Economic Forum, and it said that it will take 62 years, the gender bias gap to close in Northern Europe, 70 years in the rest of Europe, and 160 years in North America, in so-called mature, advanced countries. So I don't know about you, but I'm not prepared to wait that long. So I want to be one of the trailblazers that actually takes action now, and that we can actually turn that narrative into something and close a gap. And we take action ourselves. And we can't rely on anybody else. The only people that can actually make that change is ourselves. And that's why it's important for us to actually influence things and step forward, because we can't blame everybody else. We also have a role to play in this. And when I talk about the power of saying no and why it's so important, it becomes more relevant. And obviously it's something that we'll be discussing a little bit further in a short while. So, but before I do that, I wanted to give you a bit of an insight into, more about me, I suppose. But before I do that, what I'd like to do, can I just put you on silent for a second, Jacqueline? So, and if you want to pin me for a second. So my question to all of you is, where are you right now? So maybe the vision that you've got in mind for yourself is not being realised in the way that you hoped anymore. And this means that you're becoming increasingly frustrated or demotivated. And of course, if you are a leader, an entrepreneur, an executive, and you've got people that are working for you, they're looking towards you for direction, and they need you to stand out amongst everybody else. And the problem with that is that it then makes you feel frustrated and demotivated, and then as along with that, you then start struggling maybe with your sleep. And because you're struggling with your sleep, you become even more tired. Or possibly you might find that you're becoming busier and busier in life because you're taking on more and more and more stuff. And as a result of taking on more stuff, you haven't got time to make the decisions that you need to make. And you're saying those inevitable words, just 5 minutes, because you're spending more time in the evening and weekends doing work activities rather than actually spending time with your family or your friends, or indeed just spending time alone, enjoying some peace. Or potentially there might be a situation where you are feeling like an imposter, and you'll wonder how you're getting the role that you're in, and as a result of that, you start volunteering for everything because you feel you've got to prove yourself, and that causes you to feel even more tired and burnt out. And then finally, is that potentially every single day feels like Groundhog Day and nothing seems to be changing, and you feel like you've hit that concrete ceiling and you don't know what the future has in mind for you, but you know it's actually not this. And as a result of that, you might be becoming less tolerant with your family, your friends, and as a result of that, it's affecting your relationships. And that could be in work or on a personal level. But the question is where do you want to be instead? So where do you want to be? And that's vision the time that you are, I don't know, you look at your clock at 6:05 in the morning, and you've got another 25 minutes to go, but you don't mind at all because you are feeling or living, should I say, life with passion and purpose and energy, and you're finally living the life that you deserve. Or picture that time where the key people in your life are all striving for a common direction, so you're all heading in the right direction and your values and beliefs are all aligned, which means that nothing's tipping, everything's in balance, and you're enjoying the business that you're in, or maybe found a business that you love instead. So, or picture that time where you are finally feeling empowered, passionate, and motivated, which means that you're becoming even more creative and innovative, and that people are knocking on your door to come and work with you or for you, because they love the culture that you have created and that you're in. So, and finally, very, very important as well, is envisage that time where you finally have personal freedom. And that's to spend time with your family, your friends, or actually, it might be just on your own. But the important thing is that no one is disturbing your peace. So, now the question is if you are over here and you want to get to over there, how are you going to get there? How are you going to close that gap? Now, I believe that you're going to close that gap by rediscovering your why. And what do I mean by rediscovering your why? I mean, doing what gives you passion. Hang on a minute, I've just got to admit some people. I didn't realise that this is the one thing, is that when you're online, you can't see everybody all the time, can you? I need a next to me. So first of all, I just want to quickly welcome Naomi and also Annette, and there's a few others that are just popping their heads in the door as well. So finally coming in, so that's good. So you've just missed an introduction there, a few of you. But so what I was just talking about right now is why it's so important for you to be able to rediscover your why. As many of you know, that's something that I feel passionate about, because what's so important about that is that you need to know what gives you passion, what gives you purpose, what gives you joy in life, so you can lead the life that you deserve. If you take, for instance, people like Richard Branson, he not only lives his purpose, he breathes it, and the people around him has absolute clarity of his purpose, which is why they do want to buy from him or work with him, or in some cases take over his company and work that company as well, because he's created an organisation that people have absolute clarity about. For those that have only just joined, it'd be really good if you can put in the chat where you come from, so we can see where we all are at the moment. So, which is great. Now the question is why is it so important to have a purpose? Consider this. KPMG has said that in corporate America alone, female executives and leaders, 75% of them at one point or another have suffered with imposter syndrome and burnout at one time or another. And it's because they don't have a sense of reason, a sense of being and a sense of purpose. It's one of the key drivers for it. And for many of you, you possibly know this already, we have over 50,000 thoughts every day, according to Psychological Today. And of that, 50% of them happen to be, or over 50% of them happen to be negative ones. And what's even crazier than that is 90% of them are from the previous day. So we're just on repeat. It's madness. And yet, when we have a sense of purpose, we can change, put my teeth back in, we can change that negative energy and transfer it to positive energy. And then actually feeling far more positive in our life because we have that sense of purpose. And then, of course, the other wonderful benefit, which the NHS have cited, is that it's good for our mental health. It's good for our physical well-being. And it's also good for our cognitive functioning. Because I'll talk about it a little bit more in a moment, is that one of the impacts that we have is that it can affect our memory loss. You know, things like brain fog and things like that, and it stops us functioning. And this is why this topic tonight is so important. And I will cover off the reasons why it's so important in a short while. And then, of course, why is it important now? Well, I've already said right at the beginning of this, for those of you that missed right at the beginning, the gender bias gap is going to take 62 years to close. It's going to take 70 years in, so 62 years in Northern Europe, 70 years in the rest of Europe, and the US Northern Europe, 160 years. Now, I don't know about you ladies, but put 4 in the chat if that's not a period of time that you're prepared to wait for and that you'd like to do something about it and be one of the trailblazers to make it happen. I love the love part, I so, I love that. I think that's right. So is that pronounced Anita or Anit? All right. So thank you.
Sorry, it's Annette.
Annette. Okay. I always like to check in with people because I don't want to take it for granted on spelling. So thank you, Annette. That's appreciated. So taking that into consideration, as well as that, I mean, we all know with COVID that it's changed the priorities of a lot of people. And one of the only things that I know that's come out of it is because it's changed our priorities, that we have spent more time with our family and friends. When we do go to work, we want to make sure that it's got a sense of reasoning, a sense of being, and that's why it's so important. And of course, the other thing is that since COVID, we've had another pandemic, and it's the pandemic around mental health and burnout. And since then, it's more than doubled globally. And it's another reason where we need to change this narrative and do something about it. And the other question is well, why would you listen to me? Now, I'm going to briefly step into this, but effectively, it took me over 50 years to realise the people pleaser in me is not a positive trait to have. In fact, it was no longer serving me or my family. So much so, I reached full burnout in January 2020. Now, originally, I thought it was because I was put at risk for redundancy, but that was just the final nail in the coffin. What it was everything that built up to that time and actually caused me to full burnout in the end, because I wasn't listening to me. I wasn't listening to my body. And I will talk about that a little bit more in a moment. But the one good thing that came out of it is that I learned from that whole experience. And I'm fortunate during COVID, I didn't have any therapists, so I had to find a way myself. So I then went on my own journey of discovery, which has helped me to now help my clients using my freedom transformation formula, which I'm going to talk about with you very briefly. And hopefully I'm not going to have problems with me sharing my desktop in a minute. So, and the only reason I'm saying that is because my desktop keeps flashing on and off. So, but one of the things I have learned is that, do you know what? It doesn't matter. External matters. External factors occur and there's nothing you can do about them. It's how you respond to them. So one of the things that I have learned very, very quickly. So before I move forwards at all, I'm just going to try and share my desktop, my second one. So if it flicks on and off, you guys will still see it. I won't. So I just got to make sure it's okay. So first of all, can you see a beautiful bridge? You can? Good. That's fantastic. So what I'm going to do is just do this a second and make sure that works. So before I begin, can I just check in with you and make sure, yeah, you can see okay. So as I mentioned, is that, you know, I did have the luxury of coming out the other side because I made some life-changing changes and some decisions and learned from my experiences over the years, over the last few years. And, you know, I now get the pleasure of being able to help my clients using the Freedom Transformation Formula so they can rediscover their why and then also live a life that they deserve, more fulfilled, more successful, personally and professionally, but also to ensure that mentally and physically they're at their healthiest, which is a wonderful space to be. So I'm going to stick you over there so I can just see you okay. Right, okay then. So the first key stage which I am going to go through all of these very quickly. Usually I would go into a much deeper dive, but because of the interest of time, I'm just going to go through them quickly. And the first stage is reset, and that's about resetting where you are in relation to your stress levels. Because the problem I see with many female executive leaders and entrepreneurs is that quite often they're not aware of the damage that stress can have on them, the impact it can have mentally and physically, causing things like brain fog, memory loss. It can have an impact on your performance, and that's personally and professionally. It can have an impact. It causes things like rashes, skin problems, stomach problems. It can have an impact on your longevity of life. And then, of course, it can have an impact on your relationships, because you are reacting, and I'm using the word very carefully, reacting in a way that doesn't match who you are normally. You start becoming more emotional, and you're not being as congruent as you would to be with yourself normally. And then, of course, self-sabotage may kick in, which may cause things like overeating, drugs, alcohol, all those kind of things. Obviously, none of you, of course. So, there's nothing wrong with a glass of wine on the odd occasion, unless you're teetotal, but then that's another thing. And that's the thing, is that you need to be self-aware of what it is. And when my clients use the stress-free risk resolution, which is a 4-step process to help them to become even more stress-free, it helps them to recognize their key drivers for stress. And when I talk about the key drivers for stress, it's those things that are the triggers. And I'm going to talk about this in a much deeper level in a moment, but it's recognize the key drivers for stress. What's stimulating those stress levels to increase in the first instance. And then it's trying to understand what their indicators for stress are. Things like the neck ache, the headache, arm ache, and all that. And quite often we see these things in isolation, but not together. And we don't start seeing a picture forming, and that's where it starts spiraling out of control. And then, of course, being able to understand the patterns and bring them together, and then finally being able to kickstart it in a way where you can do quick implementations. And when it helps my clients to do the quick implementations, it also helps them to prepare themselves for some of the other things that may be longer term challenges, but they need to resolve them over time. It's almost like peeling back an onion. And sometimes trying to get to the root of the onion is where the problem lies, but that can take time. But when we can actually kickstart it, it helps you generate it. Then, of course, the second step is about learning to re-inject vitality and energy back into your life. Because it's all wonderful that you've identified what your stress levels are and what the key indicators for it. But have you ever heard of the old saying, you can't drink from an empty cup? And it's very true. And all the will in the world that you found out what all the problems are and why you're feeling stressed and the anxiety. But if you've got no energy left to be able to tackle them, then it makes it harder for you to be able to recuperate. And the problem I see with many females, and that's not just female executive leaders and entrepreneurs, because we're endlessly spinning plates. We don't want to admit that we are stressed or tired. We keep soldiering on regardless. We feel like we're superhuman, and we do spin these plates endlessly. And many organisations, it's almost like a badge of honour to be working those long hours, not taking the well-needed breaks, like going on holiday, stepping away from technology, stepping away from your desk, having some breathing space. And the problem with that means that you haven't got the focus, you haven't got the capacity to be able to function and perform at your highest level. And then by creating that awareness, it will help you to be able to perform much better. And when my clients use the GEMS Wellbeing Journey, it helps them to learn to stop. And I mean, really stop, step away from their desk. Even if it is just for 5 minutes each hour. And I know sometimes it's not always possible because you're in meetings, all those kind of things. But where it's possible, plan it in, because when you don't step away from your desk and you're overloaded, you've got task after task after task after task, or you've got all the things that you're worrying about. Should I be going shopping? Have I got to collect the kids? Have I got to do this? Have I got to do that? Have I got to book the holiday? Have I got to pay the bills? All those things are just going at 100 miles an hour. Your brain is firing at 100 miles an hour, which means that you're not able to focus. You're not able to concentrate, which then means when you go to bed at night, your brain's still running at 1,000 miles an hour. And people think that when they're creative, I've heard it before with some of my clients, oh, the reason why I'm up at sort of 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning is because I'm creative that time. No, you're not creative at that time. What it is your mind is going at 1,000 miles an hour because you've not been able to focus during the day. And trust me, if you are in that situation where you can slow your mind down, give it some space to focus because you stepped away, you stopped and learnt to breathe, then at the same time it allows you to be able to focus on a task or project far more simply because you've got the capacity to do that during the day. So, and then the third pillar is all about introspection, trying to understand the connections between some of the decisions that you've made and the choices over the period of years, what it is that you've been doing. Because without understanding where those connections and the patterns come from, then how can you actually change the narrative, those feelings that you get inside? Because the problem I often see with female executives, leaders and entrepreneurs is that they don't know where it's come from. They don't know why the voice is there, the inner critic, if any of you have actually heard that phrase used, the one that's given them the limiting beliefs, where it stops you from feeling confident in yourself, or where your self-value is reduced down, all of those words that you say. And quite often where people are not looking at their inner critic, they don't know how to challenge it in another way and actually look at it with compassion. And I'll talk about that. I talk about that on a deeper level on my program. Now, are any of you familiar? Please put it in the chat if you are. Put a 2 in the chat. Are you familiar with Joe Dispenza? So Joe, for anybody that hasn't, Joe Dispenza, he's hugely focused on the topic of energy, which is something I talk about in the re-energize pillar. But what he talks about is that by the time we're 35, we have been wired in terms of our personality. Just got to admit someone in. Yeah, so by the time we're 35, our personality has been wired. And the thing is that quite often we do the same thing day in, day out, get up the same side of the bed every day, drink the same drinks, eat the same food, talk to the same people, do the same thing. It's Groundhog Day, and repeat and repeat and repeat. And where we have that, it then means that we fall into the trap of thinking, what's the old phrase, is the definition of madness? It's doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And the only way we can change that is by understanding how we're wired and also changing the way in which we do things, which does mean, going out and talking to different people, connecting with different people that may lift you up, learning about new things, reading new things, eating new things, drinking, doing different things. So it's helping to rewire our personality that then helps us to grow more and give us more confidence. And this is where I help my clients using the empowering growth generator, because it does help my clients to reflect on the past, understand what went well, what didn't go so well, and when did things change, so they can then identify what they need to change in the future, and they can then implement steps to not only give them more self-confidence, self-belief, and self-love, because it's something we struggle with, is a bit of self-love. So, and then finally, the last pillar, which I love, is rediscover, and that's about rediscovering your why. And as I've already mentioned, that's about what gives you passion, what gives you purpose, and what gives you joy. Because quite often with females, executive leaders, entrepreneurs, is that we're so focused on the what and how that we don't know, and we don't know what we're actually doing or where we're going and what direction we're actually going into. And the problem with that means that everything becomes like Groundhog Day, and we end up bored out of our minds doing something we don't love at all. And then that's where it comes into the situation where on Sunday nights you may be dreading the next morning or the week ahead. Now, I don't know about you, but we have one life to live. I don't want to dread Monday morning. I want to look forward to every single day. So put 2 in the chat if you would love to be looking forward to every single day and not only Fridays and looking for the weekend. Right. I will share with you how to spell his name. So it is Joe, and it's Dispen. I think it's Zer, but bear with me. I will let you know about that one. But it's great audio. Listen, that one. But when my clients use the Brilliant Smile solution, it not only helps them to rediscover their why, it helps them to establish what their values and their beliefs are. So everything becomes in balance, and that's associated to both their personal life and their professional life. And it also helps them to be able to transform either within the organisation they're in, or indeed transform altogether and create a business that they love, for which I help them to build a strategy to do that, and a roadmap and a pathway to implement it and take action. Right. So, in the interest of time, the only topic that I'm going to go into very, very briefly at the moment is the first pillar, and that's of the stress-free risk resolution, which has 4 steps to achieve results. So if you'd like to write down on a piece of paper on the left-hand side, if you've got a pen and paper to hand, is RISK. And the first one that we will be covering up and only for tonight is recognition. And what do I mean by recognition? I've already mentioned it before. It's about recognizing your key drivers for stress, those triggers. Now, I know for absolute that, you know, the stress levels are there for a good reason, in the sense that the fight, flight, freeze mode, because, you know, many moons ago, we did have to be very aware of things like saber-toothed tigers and things jumping out us and all those kind of things. So we needed to have that response where we can immediately respond and react and basically haul up and run. So, but, you know, I don't know about you, but I haven't jumped into any saber-toothed tigers any time recently, but there you go. But the problem is that stress pattern kicks in for certain situations in our life, and it then, instead of us being able to respond to situations by letting our logical brain kick in, the emotional monkey, as I like to describe it, is the one that kicks in instead. And that's where then you start reacting in a way that isn't congruent to you. You're behaving in a way that you don't show up in the way that a leader should show up. And that's not just a leader within a work environment, but within the people that you're surrounded by. And on top of that, it also means that when you're not showing, I can hear my dogs growling away downstairs. so, but that's playing, not fighting. So, yeah. So the problem with that as well is that if you don't recognise what your key drivers are, then you keep on repeating the cycle. And as I just mentioned about the whole Joe Dispenza thing, is that, you know, you go on this on repeat, and you then start performing this wheel of misfortune, as I like to describe it, which is where the things kick in with the self-sabotage, not being vulnerable, not facing conflict, not socialising, all those kind of things. And as a result of that, that's where your stress levels increase. And that's why it's so important to create awareness. And before I dig into that any further, what I would like to do right now is I would like to take the opportunity to invite you an invitation to the Burnout Breakthrough Accelerator. And the reason why I'm doing this now is that tonight, you guys are the first for this specific announcement, is that I'm doing a launch price offer. I'm going to talk about it in a little bit more detail in a moment. But the launch price offer, the reason why I'm doing this at the moment is that the location that we're going to, I'm doing, is the first time I've used this specific location. And obviously I want to give everybody the benefit of giving us feedback of this specific location and being able to help us to enhance it for any future times that we use a specific location. Now, what is the Burnout Breakthrough Accelerator? So first of all, it's a 3-day live event. It's masterclass, yoga and meditation. It's a retreat where it's all inclusive, and that does mean masterclasses. You've got yoga, and I'd like to point out the yoga isn't outside. There is actually yoga inside. It's just that this is at one of my other events, and it was a beautiful day, so we thought we'd take the opportunity to go outside. Why not go outside? Because it's good to ground. And then obviously with a meditation, and because obviously when you're doing the master classes, the topic that we're talking about, there will be things that will show up, and when things show up, then you need the opportunity to be able to wind down and be able to refocus yourself and re-energize. And then of course it's being held in this stunning, beautiful location of Bedfordshire. It's not a hotel. It is a private property where you've got accommodation within the property, a beautiful swimming pool, space for doing the yoga, the meditation and the classes, and then of course, as I mentioned, the accommodation. It also includes the 12-week program, and the 12-week program includes live group Zoom sessions. Plus I've got online training material that is recorded material that you can access, which is ongoing access for the future. And what I've found with the group calls is like this, is that quite often as females, we can sit around the table or we can be amongst each other and we fear that we're actually alone and we're the only one that's behaving the way that we're behaving, we're experiencing what we're experiencing, we feel isolated, all those kind of things. And when you have these group calls together, the thing that I've found that's been the most beneficial is people being able to share their experiences, and then it gives the other person the opportunity to go, do you know what? I'm doing this as well, and actually I'm not alone, and it doesn't make them feel alone in that situation. They tend to talk more and share some of their challenges and experiences. So in terms of the launch price offer, as I said before, it is a launch price. It's a one-off time that this price will be taking place. There's 14 spaces available for this event, which will also include the online program. Oh, wait a minute. The online program and the 3-day all-inclusive retreat. The date is September the 8th, which is on a Friday, till Sunday the 10th. So, and the price, a one-off price is 525. So if you invested in it at a one-off time, it's 525. And then if you want to break it into 2 installments, it's 288. And as I mentioned, it's a one-time offer. As soon as I kick it back into the normal program, it will be the price that it would be normally done at 6250, so 92% off. So a great opportunity to take advantage of that. So what you will do, if you want to find out more information, you can scan the QR code and you can actually read up more information about the event and also have the opportunity to register on it. But let's give you some breathing space now, because it's a lot of information to be taken in. Let's continue. So let me return you to my last slide. So what I was talking to you about was recognition. And the reason why tonight is so important for me is that one of the things that, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, that I recognised was that I was a people pleaser. I was always saying yes to everything, volunteering for everything, wanting to try to prove myself. I was wearing the imposter mask because I was working in an environment where it was all men. My leadership team was all men, 12 men, 1 woman. And all of the tiers above me were predominantly men. And it's 26,000 people that worked in the company, and the entire general management team, the entire team was all white, male, Oxford, boys club. So it then tells you, it gives you patterns of belief that the only way you're succeeding is by acting like a man, that you need to behave in a certain way to be able to achieve things. And this is where the self-doubt comes in, the belief in yourself, and where the imposter comes in. And this is why this topic is so important, which I'll be digging down to in a moment, is this whole thing about recognising your key drivers. Because without me recognising it, I wouldn't have been aware that this is the behaviour that I was displaying. And it can show up in different ways. It could be just doing calls like this might actually create a level of stress increase for some people. It's something that they don't feel confident in. For some of us that are in this audience right now, speaking on a stage in the past may have been the most terrifying experience that we had, but because we've embraced it now, we enjoy the experience. But in the past, it might have been a problem. There might be that one person in your life, doesn't matter how much you lie, they push buttons in you, and you go from 0 to 60 in, what should I say? You should go into DEFCON 9 in 0 to 60 because they can just touch you like a litmus paper and you just explode. But when you realise who or what or where or how it's being displayed, then you can start taking action with that awareness. And this is where this whole next stage has come into. But I'm going to stop sharing just right now because I want to just be more visible of what's going on with you guys. So make sure you're all still awake and alive. Hi, Dodo. I can see you there. I could just do a wave. So, right. So now, obviously, tonight is all about why it's so important to be able to enhance the power of saying no. Now, it's quite interesting. I had a lady, a VA, responded to me in LinkedIn. I said, oh, thanks for the invitation, but I won't be joining you. But I actually find the word no negative, which I thought was quite an interesting thing. Because she said, for me, in the role that I'm in, I want to make sure that I actually find a, what would you say, is actually a solution for everything. I'm acutely aware of the time, but I think that's because we actually waited 10 minutes before we joined on it. She said, we try to find a solution for everything. And I said, I know, I was a program director. I always used to try and find a solution for problems. But this isn't about problems. This is about being able to say no, and quite importantly, say no to yourself as well, rather than being the one that volunteers all the time. So just quickly, I'd like you to put in the chat, how many of you feel that you say yes far more than you should do, or have found yourself in the past saying far more yeses than you should really do? Yeah. I'm glad to see that, Deborah. Yeah, it's a powerful thing when you finally realise it's okay. Yeah. So my next quick question would be so what do you think would be some of the drivers for why you may say yes instead of no all the time? Well done, Naomi. I know you're practicing. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So yeah, please avoid conflict, not articulate. Yeah, have to have an attitude. Yeah, can do attitude. Yeah, not have an attitude, but can do attitude. Now, yeah, yeah, there is also that fear. And interestingly, Annette, is that if you're in an environment where they're empowering you, you should be able to have the courage to be able to say no and have it. It is okay to, you should have a leader that's inspiring you to say no. But one of the things that I'd like to talk about right now is the fact that the key drivers is that also some stuff that's program patterns of beliefs that we have. So that can be cultural expectations, for instance. And when I talk about cultural expectations, so I just need to move something out of the way. Yeah, so when I talk about cultural expectations, I'm talking about things like, your programmed behaviour, gender roles, beliefs that have been shaped around us, religion, culture, all of those kind of things, where you've come from, where the expectation is to be accommodating, nurturing, and always saying yes. And then there's this sort of internalized pressure that by saying no would create judgment or backlash. And then, of course, that fear of being seen as difficult in leadership roles and being labelled as difficult or unlikable. And then, of course, you've then got that desire to sort of want to maintain harmony. And then, of course, this fearing missed opportunities, because you think that you're going to get missed opportunities in your career if you're not looking at, saying yes to everything. And what I'll talk about that in a little bit in a moment. And then, of course, you've then got things like, this superwoman stereotype where you feel that you've got to fulfill multiple roles and excel in all of them simultaneously, and that you fear not meeting those expectations and having a reluctance to say no will mean that you're incapable or inadequate. It's just so not true. And then, of course, being in a male-dominated environment is that you're feeling vulnerable to act in a certain way, and that you're also contributing to reinforcing those gender biases and reinforcing the stereotypical behaviour. And if we behave in a certain way, we think that it may, lead to us being seen as weak or less competent, so to speak. Which is, it's not fair. It's not fair at all. But unfortunately, that's where the program patterns of belief come in. And then, of course, as you've already mentioned, is that why is it, a challenge? Many of the things that you have all mentioned in the chat, we've talked about, jeopardizing opportunities, desire to please everybody, striving for perfectionism. So I'd be interested to know, put one in the chat if you're known for striving for perfectionism. So you actually push your own boundaries and you're frightened of actually seen as a failure. So you then put all of these high standards and expectations on yourself. Yeah, well done, Jacqueline. Yeah. 1 star, yes, Diane. We spoke about that the other week. Is this expectations that we put on ourselves? Yeah, indeed. And then, of course, one of the other things is why it might be so difficult is that we've not been given the right training, assertiveness training. And because we've not been given the right assertiveness training, we don't feel that we can challenge in a confident way and say it effectively. And then, of course, the knock-on effect of that is the fear of confrontation or conflict. And as a result of us fearing it, it means that we fear any disagreements or conflicts. So it's uncomfortable for us to actually say no in certain situations, which means that we don't actually put any boundaries around us. I know I used to avoid conflict all the time. And the result of avoiding the conflict within the workplace is it means that I wasn't actually dealing with the situation head to head. So I was saying yes to everything just to appease everybody, which is certainly not a healthy space, as we've realised. So, and then, of course, this need as women, naturally, we like to have harmonious relationships. So we prioritise building and maintaining positive relationships over the fear of us being able to damage these connections with people, because, you know, we want to keep everybody happy, not what we're about. So, and then, of course, the gender biases that come with it as well, which are perpetuated, and unfortunately, you know, being accommodating and agreeable comes part of that, and we find it difficult to assert boundaries. Yeah, not bothered by confrontation. What is it? Not bothered by being at confrontations. In the past, it was the only way of being noticed. So, yeah, but then again, the confrontation, there's a difference between confrontation and managing conflict in a constructive way, because confrontation comes across as exactly like that. I know myself, I've had situations where I've come across as emotional because I got frustrated about something, rather than being able to take a step back, taking a breather and thinking about, well, how can I manage this in a much better way? So you're responding constructively rather than reacting destructively, because you're dismissed otherwise. And when you're dismissed, you've not actually created the result that you wanted by the confrontation. So it's this, you know, it's a balance between the two. I need to put my teeth back in. I'm dribbling, getting so it's that age thing. so okay then. So that's where, and I'm so clear that we've gone over time, but that's because part of that was because we started later. But as long as you guys are all happy and you're okay to keep moving forwards on it. So the next thing is, you know, what is the impact? Put in a chat what you think would be the impact of you saying yes all the time. How can it affect you? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the list, it goes on, doesn't it? And there's so many things that can actually have a knock-on effect on you. You know, the increased stress and burnout, as you've mentioned, the impact it has on your work-life balance, which then means that it then affects your self-care, your personal interests. You start getting dissatisfaction and strain on your personal relationships. Your well-being gets impacted, and of course, it's then going to have a knock-on effect on your effectiveness and your productivity. Because when you're spread too thin, one, you're saying yes to everything and may potentially not be delivering on everything. And if you are delivering on them, you're actually not delivering on them in a way that is, you know, at the highest performance. Mistakes happen, errors occur, and those kind of things. It can lead to poor decision making or lower outcomes. Or, as I've just said, is that you come across emotional, and when you come across emotional, reciprocal. Yes, it's a reciprocal. Yeah, no one's going to do a spelling bee on you. So you're all right there. And it also has an impact on your growth opportunities. And I know that sounds a bit of an opposite. You know, if you're saying yes all the time, it looks like you're, you know, stepping out. But in fact, where you keep on saying yes and accommodating to requests without setting personal boundaries, you miss out on valuable growth opportunities, because you're not pursuing strategic projects and something that's going to help your professional development or to be able to explore new ventures. What you're doing is spreading yourself thin with like tasks that are not going to be actually beneficial to you. And also it means that you end up showing up as not being a great leader because you're accepting yes for everything. And you're also perpetuating the gender stereotypes by saying yes to everything. And it undermines and challenges the existing gender norms, and it hinders your progress because people aren't seeing you as a power, like a leader that someone wants to follow. It's, oh, she's a bit of a yes man, or yes woman, should I say, in this circumstance. And then, of course, it's going to diminish your self-worth and confidence, because it erodes your own self-worth and self-confidence and ability, because you're not got the ability to prioritise your own needs and your own boundaries. And then that's where you start feeling undervalued and taken for granted. So, and then, of course, we've already spoken about the strain on your personal relationships. So the final piece on there is, so why do you think it's beneficial to say okay? All right, go on, Deborah. Go on quickly.
Can you repeat that, please?
So why do you think it's okay to say no? Why do you think it's beneficial? What impact will it have on you as an individual? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you're right that once you said no once, Naomi, it makes it so much easier the next time round, and that's the beauty of it. So the other thing is that the obvious things is, the self-care. You're prioritising your self-care, and it also helps you to prevent burnout and promotes a healthier work life. It helps with focus and productivity. It allows you to sort of allocate more time for yourself and increase energy, stress reduction, better decision making, improved work-life balance. And then finally is that, you get increased respect and professionalism. And the reason why is that because you're assertively communicating and upholding your boundaries, it also helps you to respect your time, your expertise, your personal needs, and it enhances your professional image and fosters that healthier working relationship. And like I've just explained to you previously, is that it devalues you when you do keep saying yes all the time. It means that you can create, and I know that the lovely Deborah would love this, creativity and innovation, because you've got more mental space and you've got more downtime to be able to nurture your creativity and innovate ideas, because you've got the space to do it in. It builds resilience, and as you just mentioned, Naomi, you've just mentioned, it builds resilience because one, you're recognizing and responding to your limits. You're empowering yourself to overcome the challenges and setbacks more effectively. And then, of course, self-expression. So it helps you to be your true self, show up as the person that you are, express your values, your opinions, without compromising the fear, or sorry, should I say, without fear and compromise. And it enables you to show up as the authentic individual that you are and improves your overall well-being. So there's so many benefits that it can have for you. So okay, I am really conscious that we've gone straight over time, but hopefully that's all been beneficial to you, and you've had some tips and guidance that you can use within here. And before I go any further, oh, I've lost you all. Where are you? Where are you? There you are. There you are. Lovely, beautiful ladies. So before I go, what I would like to do with you is, once again, I'm going to quickly share my desktop. And just as a quick reminder to anybody that would love to participate in my launch price offer, where you get 92% off, because it is a one-time offer for just this event only, because it's a new event. And scan the QR code. You'll get all of the details that are associated to not only this event, but also the program online and the additional bonuses that you would get from that. And then, of course, you then, if you would like to talk about on a deeper level and more understanding, or find out the other programs and projects that I do, then you can scan this QR code and book a discovery call with me, and can have some more time to talk through some of those other areas. Okay, so before I wend our way and allow you some free time, do you have any questions before you go? Go on silent, off silent.
How does the 12 sessions fit in with the retreat? Do they go before or after, or either side? Or
so the 12 sessions would begin as soon as you start this, like, so you join up. So the 12 sessions begin, it's like a rolling cycle, but you've also got the access online to the program online, and which you can go down through the steps of the whole stress-free risk resolution system. And the actual sessions that the sessions that you get with that means that we have like Q&A sessions, so it's a chance for people to have a bit of a deeper dive and discuss things on a deeper level and get more understanding. The other thing that you do get the opportunity is that you'll get three free months on my paid Facebook group, which is for the Freedom Transformation Formula, which is for all of the stages. So you also get access to that over the 3 months period, and all of the weekly sessions that go with that, yeah, so, and material that come through that. So
okay, so would you recommend that people have done some of that online stuff and the group calls before they come on the retreat?
I think it makes it more beneficial to them. So one, that they're also had some preparation in advance. They started to perhaps monitor their own patterns of behaviour, and by monitoring their own patterns of behaviour, it means that when you actually come into the event, then you've got a chance to talk about, thrash them out on a deeper level when you're actually in the group together. So you've got no surprises either. So, well, there will be surprises, but not on that side of it. So, okay. Any other questions? No. Oh, Diana, you try, Dido. You try. Yep.
I was just trying to say, it all sounds wonderful. I wouldn't be able to do any sessions in July. July's a write-off for me, and with other commitments, I don't know how much of the online work I get done before September, but I do recognise that I was thinking of asking someone to find prices for a retreat for me. So that event in that location with you would be very beneficial.
Yeah, that would be fantastic, Dave. Well, the thing is, as I just said to Deborah, is that you can do it as a rolling thing. So when you sign up, if we go into the call, jump on a call, we can determine when you want to actually begin your 12-week cycle. But equally on the online stuff, you've got that access. It would be sort of infinitum. So it doesn't mean you have it now and you only get it for 12 weeks. You have it ongoing, so you can access it as and when you need to be able to use it.
Okay.
Right. Thank you. Okay, so everybody, thank you for joining me this evening. It's been a pleasure, and it's always good to have engagement with a load of amazing women that deserve to live more fulfilled and successful lives. So enjoy the rest of your evening, lovely ladies. So, and I look forward to seeing you over the coming weeks. So.
I went unmuted for that. For the applause.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dido. Thank you for joining us, ladies. Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Naomi. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Keely. I say I'm away that weekend as it is, so but maybe another time.
Yes. Yeah. Well, hopefully. Yeah. Well, not hopefully. Yes. Yes. All right.
Don't do hopefully.
Take care, my lovelies. Enjoy.
Yeah, bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks a
Take
lot.
care.
Lovely to see you, Naomi, as well.
Yeah, and you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
lovely. Bye.
You've given me the confidence to do mine.
Oh, there you go. See,
Yeah,
well,
I'm gonna go.
you don't step forward, then it will never happen. So
That's right. That's right. So
Do
thank
it.
you.
Just
Thank
do
you.
it.
Take care. Cheers. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.